That's a life of a fisherman you wouldn't understand. Something you can't feel on dry land. You gotta get your arms way up in a cage and set the hook on smallmouth bass, and then you'll understand. You gotta get your hands on a Shimano reel and a G-Loomis rod. I bet you like what you feel. Step on the deck, give it a whirl. Hello, welcome to my world. What's going on, all you Facebook Live and YouTube Live fishing freaks? Welcome back to this episode of On Another Line Live. My name is Tyler Waller, your friendly host with the most that likes to fish and really can't do it. So that's why I like to talk to you guys and learn how to do it. This week's episode brought to you by the Champagne of Beers, Miller High Life. So, and live the high life and enjoy a frosty cold beverage if you so choose. But with that being said, we are going to have a short show this evening, probably talking about what happened this weekend down at the Casting for Kids Classic. We had some really cool times. JR and I went down there and fished a tournament that was the Casting for Kids Classic. You guys heard me talking about that last week. And fished at Del Hollow. Del Hollow is a weird lake. I have a love-hate relationship with it. There's a lot of big fish, a lot of fish to be had. There are slot limits crazy, but I think that's why there's so many big smallmouth in the area. It's loaded with smallmouth. It's really cool, you know, like Highland Reservoir that's super deep usually. I mean, and you find out fishing there that you don't know what deep is until you're actually deep. What I mean by that is I've caught fish upwards of 80 feet deep, largemouth, live scoping, obviously. And that's kind of where it happens, down there. What's up, Strick? How you doing, buddy? Saw that your boy Matthew went down there and Dardanelle and caught a few fish. Sucks that he didn't do very well in the tournament, but that's fishing kind of with us as well. So we were looking at Del Hollow, and I will be the first to tell you I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time on the lake this year learning forward-facing sonar, and I'm a true believer in there are certain lakes around this area, especially if forward-facing sonar is allowed and legal for tournaments, that it really has to be something that you embrace and learn how to use. Now, I am the first person to tell you that it is not like everybody thinks that doesn't have it or thinks that this like cult following that's like, you put forward-facing sonar on your boat, and all of a sudden you're catching 5 fish every time you go out, and you're going to weigh in 20 pounds on a high river tournament, and none of that happens. Let's face it. Do you have an advantage with forward-facing sonar? Absolutely, you do. But it's something that you have to learn and hone your skills to try to figure it out. And around this area, live scoping like Yatesville and Grayson, you're looking anywhere from 10 to 15, 20 foot, 25 maybe at the deepest, it seems like. But 25 foot is shallow at Del Hollow. And that's one thing that I had to really understand that was different from any other lake. And JR spent a day and a half fishing shallow, and he caught one keeper. It was a keeper largemouth, caught it on a Jackal chunk crawl. Let's have a moment of silence for the chunk crawl because it's no longer made. But, man, it wrecks bass. I wish Jackal would come back out with it. But it has been discontinued. Which, by the way, in Jackal baits, I'm going to show you guys a bait today on this show that I didn't know existed, and I guarantee you I'll be throwing it. I didn't have a clue that it even existed. Must be a Japanese bait or something. It's made by Jackal, but I'll show you in just a second. But we went down there. Jared fished again the 2 practice days he had down there, shallow, and just got absolutely whipped. But I knew going into it, if we weren't scoping, as they say, if you're not scoping, you're just hoping. And again, it's not my style of fishing. I would much rather go beat the banks with a spinnerbait, which, by the way, I told you guys I'm making those Tackle Box 2.0 spinnerbaits. I do have about 20 of them made right now. They're 1/4 ounce. I will have some 3/8 ounce eventually. I put some VMC hooks on them, which I really like, but I caught my very first fish on it this weekend, so I can attest that it actually works. Runs really well, runs just like Greg's did back in the day. So hopefully I'll be able to get those back out to you guys here very soon. But we started the morning fishing shallow, and I really didn't know how shallow we were. We were back in Sulphur Creek in the very back of it, and it is a giant flat. And I looked down at the graph, and we're fishing in 6 foot of water. And I was like, man, this is not the deal here. We cannot fish 6 foot of water. I know it's fall and anything tells you want to be in these big flats and maybe throwing a lipless and things for the shad spawn. That doesn't work here. Like I feel like that there's nothing that a fish relates to in Del Hollow. Like I've been there like 4 or 5 times, so it's not like I'm just an expert there, which I'm obviously not. I'm very amateur at fishing no matter what. But when it comes to Del Hollow, I'm definitely an amateur because I've only been there about 5 times. And I got my rear end whipped every time until we figured out that you have to live scope those fish down there. It's just win and roam type deal. You have to do it. So we went to a flat that I'd found in Sulphur Creek, not too far from where we started shallow. And we fished for about 20 minutes or so without a bite, but I couldn't find the fish. There's bait fish everywhere in Del Hollow. I mean, everywhere. You can go in any pocket, pull up in there, and there's going to be just oodle scuds of bait fish. And you have to take that into consideration. You're like, how do I know that, I'm going to be getting, I'm competing against natural forage. So it's really tough to catch fish down there anyway, unless you're really good at live scoping. And I'm not. I'm just, I'll just tell you that it's a learned skill, and I'm a very amateur at that right now. But I did learn one thing, that with forward facing sonar down Del Hollow, you could see fish, and if you saw fish grouped up in multiple, like a school of fish, you could catch almost every one of those fish in the school because they're competitive. They're competitive feeders. They would be running around, and you would throw a bait in there, and they would all basically just bombard that bait and try to eat it. Now, if you found a single roamer, those were normally the bigger fish of the deals that we found. But a couple of things, if you're just now getting into forward facing sonar, and I know nobody wants to talk about forward facing sonar, it just kind of sucks, but the way it is, if you want to use it and you want to be successful, a couple of tips that I can give you is that do not ever let your bait fall past the fish. If the bait falls past the fish, they will follow it down. They'll follow that thing down all the way to the bottom. But I've rarely ever had a fish hit it on the fall if it goes past them. So basically, my technique down at Del Hollow, what I realized this past time when I was down there, and the time before that, Kyle and I were catching largemouth in 80 foot of water, which is crazy to me. Which comes into fish care and things we'll talk about in just a second. But one of the things that I realized is that, one, the bait has to stay above the fish. And when I say above the fish, I stop the bait like 2 foot above the fish. Like, you can see forward facing sonar, you can see the fish, you can see them swimming, you can see their tails, especially if you have an LVS 34. You can dang near tell what kind of fish it is. And so have that bait come down and hovering right above the fish, usually about 2 feet in the water column. And then as soon as that fish reacts and is headed up towards your bait, you're going to start reeling that bait. And I'm talking about sometimes you're just ripping that bait, trying to get away from that fish. And 9 times out of 10, that fish will come up there and eat that bait, because if you think about how real minnows and bait fish and things react to predators like a bass, first off, a bait is not going to go down below the bass because they're going to be going right past the mouth of what's trying to eat them. So I think that's why they don't hit it when it goes past them. And the second off, if a bass is headed towards a bait fish and that bait fish knows that bass is coming, that bait fish is going to do everything in its power to leave that fish behind and go as fast as possible to get away from that bass who's trying to eat it. So one thing I noticed is that you can hover that thing about 2 feet above that fish's head, and then you could drop it slowly to get the fish's attention. But as soon as that fish made that move to turn up to come at that bait, I just was reeling that thing. I'm talking, it was like going up at an angle at a pretty good pace. And 9 times out of 10, I could get those fish to come way out of, left field to hit the bait, which was really cool. So we learned a little bit about forward facing sonar, ended up only weighing in about 4 pounds. I lost about a 15-inch spotted bass real early in the morning when we were fishing shallow on that spinner bait. So that would have put us up into the money. Brent Jones and those guys, I think they finished 26th and they paid out 25 places, which is, the kind of way it goes. We finished 28th, I believe, with 4 pounds. Guys that won it, man, 21 pounds. They had almost a 6-pound smallmouth, so it was a really good deal. Mark Hickey, what's up, buddy? It's been a while since I've seen you on here. Thanks for joining. going on? So again, went down there to Del Hollow, down at Hickey's land down there, and caught some fish. If the size limit or the slot limit wasn't there, we'd had a better day. Obviously, we caught about 20 bass. We got 2 fish that were 20 inches long, like right at a little over 20 and a quarter. And so, if you don't know, Del Hollow has a weird slot limit. You can keep 1 fish per angler, up from 12 to 15 and 7/8 inches. You can have 1 apiece, and then you can have 1 smallmouth over 21 inches. It can't be 21 inches. It has to be like 21 and a 64th. It can't touch that break line. It has to be over it. So, you're talking a 4-pound largemouth probably in that range. I did have a fish get off at the boat that probably was that 4.5, 5-pound range. Big, giant fish. Just come unbuttoned. That's what's kind of, the deal when you're live scoping and you have those really small hooks. I was throwing a 1/2 ounce VMC head with, it's a River Rock fluke, basic's. But then we were throwing some other baits, throwing the Rapala, what is that thing called? I'll think of it in a second. But we were throwing some baits, and it seemed like the fish wanted bigger baits. We just couldn't find a largemouth. I found 1 school or 1 pot of largemouth chasing bait. I ended up catching 1 of them, and we lost the fish directly after that. But it was, the largemouth limit is 15 inches. It was 14 and a half, another 1/2 inch. That puts us in the money as well. We ain't making 21 pounds though. The guy that won it is a local legend there, I guess. It just wins all kind of money there. He's won like $300,000 in tournaments over the last few years. So it's kind of like Matt Robertson of the area, just absolutely smokes them. So yeah, like I said, 5.5 pound large or smallmouth, which is crazy. But it was a good day. We went out fishing, done some live scoping, and there's not going to be a video come out on YouTube. I apologize for you guys that follow around for those videos. There's nothing to watch. It's a live scoping fest. We literally look down at a screen for 8 hours a day. And it wasn't fun for me to fish that way. And I know it's not fun for you to watch me fish that way. So that is not going to be out on YouTube anytime soon. I am going to be releasing some of the clips on YouTube Shorts, so you'll be able to see those out there. Yes, sir, man. That's the deal. 20 20-inch smallmouth are hammers, right? You're 4.5, 5 pounds. We have 2 of those. If we were able to, if those things are a 1/2 inch longer a piece, we have at least 8 more pounds to our total. So that puts us at about 13 pounds probably. So it's just the way it is, man. Like, we did learn a lot though. I did notice that, like I said, what I was saying ago, I was hovering the bait about 2 foot above them. And then as soon as they would react, I was really trying to rip it away from them, and they would just eat it every time. Some of the things that we were up in, what was the Hendricks Creek? We found fish were just loaded in Hendricks. There was so many bait fish in there. That's where we caught most of our fish. Ended up catching 2 in Sulphur. We probably had 15 fish that we caught in Hendricks. And it was just, and the wind started kicking up and started blowing. So it's really tough to live scope in the wind, obviously, but we would get on a fish every now and again. We went from catching fish every 5 to 8 minutes, probably, to every 1 fish every 15 to 20 minutes because of the wind. It was really tough to stay on there. Those times like that, I could see having a turret system on your boat, if you could afford one, would make it handy. That way you can spot lock down and then use the turret to find the fish. That is one of the very few times I could see that being a necessity. Would have been nice to have. It's not going to be something I spend my money on right off the rip, though, because I don't spend that much time live scoping. We caught some spotted bass shallow. We caught 1 largemouth shallow in practice. But no, everything, shallow for Del Hollow, I think. We were catching them 25 to 30 foot of water live scoping. Where I was down there last year in November or October 1st of November, we were catching fish in 80 foot of water, which sounds nuts. But, most of the things, there's a ditch in Hendricks Creek back there that we were catching them in normally about 32 to 35 foot of water. They were just roaming. It was pretty cool to watch on live scope, because if you can get set up on those fish and you can cast something in there, especially if they're coming through, and I think it's so cool, man. when you see a big ball of bait on the graph, and then you see a fish just like going right through it, and the bait's scattering out, you just know that fish is just chomping. If you can get your bait anywhere near that fish, you're almost guaranteed to catch it. But it was a good time. Forward-facing sonar, that's the deal. It's not going to be a video coming out on YouTube because it's not fun to watch. But Chris Ferguson and Casting for Kids, another great tournament. It was an amazing deal. I don't know what kind of money they raised, but I will tell you a special announcement was made down there at the Casting for Kids tournament this year. And it's for those of you guys that want to play in the big time realm. And this is probably one of the biggest tournaments I've ever heard of in this area, especially in the smaller realm of stuff that's not like an Elite Series event. Chris announced that next year the Casting for Kids Classic will be at Lake Chickamauga, and it's going to be a 200 boat field, $500 entry. They're going to be giving away $100,000 in prize money. That is crazy. $100,000 for a tournament. I don't know how you enter it. I would imagine, I mean, if it's 200 boats, I'd say they're just going to let it be basically an open. I'd imagine. I don't know, because unless they're going to have like 3 or 4 regional tournaments, I can tell you they have one in Tennessee this year, and obviously have one in at Yatesville and Paintsville. And following along with Jason Kenner and those guys, Paintsville is really coming on. Those threadfin shad that they've put in that lake have turned that lake upside down in a good way. They had one guy caught 7-pounder and a 6-pounder there out of there in Paintsville in 1 week, which is unheard of. So it does work. Maybe we can get that to happen at Yatesville and Grayson. $100 for the first tournament, $100 for the second tournament. So that makes sense. So I guess there's 160 boats in the Kentucky event. I know for sure. So top 100. So that's how you're going to qualify. Thanks for that, Josh. But again, that is crazy money, man. $100,000. I don't know what they're paying out first place. I would imagine probably like $30,000. That's normally the way it goes. They're paying out a ton of spots, I'd say. I'm pretty sure of it. But they do a great thing, guys. It comes down to kids. I'm a school teacher, so I do a lot for the kids anyway when I try to do as much as I can for them. But the biggest things about the Shriners and the Casting for Kids event is the fact that, we're all going to be fishing anyway. And the tournament is ran so well, especially, the one here in Kentucky that they do at Yatesville is an amazing deal. They have a lot of different things going on. It's run so smoothly, man. 160 boats parking in Yatesville. You're probably thinking, oh my God, it's going to be a cluster, but it's actually the smoothest ran tournament that I've probably ever been in. Everything runs, everything's smooth, everything's good. Everybody's there for a good time. There's rarely any drama. I've never seen anything like that. Everybody's just happy-go-lucky and ready to either catch fish or not, and help some kids in the long run. So that's what it's all about. Here soon, I think it's like January 1st, they reopen up the Casting for Kids. I think they do the pre entry or whatever. At that point, they send out letters around January, February, so you can get it. But that's coming up soon. Obviously, something you can do. Another good thing about this, guys, is I'm not asking for donations for my show here, obviously, but if you're looking for a way to donate some money for a good cause and have something that's tax deductible and can be added as charity, especially have a business, that's the way to go, because they are a nonprofit organization and they you can write it off on your taxes. So I mean, it's a great way to give back to the community and give back to the student or the folks at the Shriners Hospital. To if you think about it, like if it's $100,000 they give, which is an amazing amount, I'm definitely not knocking it. $100,000 a lot. Let's just say that we as anglers or Chris and those guys raise $100,000 for students, or for those, I keep saying students, obviously I'm a teacher, for those patients and those kids at Shriners Hospital. Guys, in the world today, $100,000 doesn't really amount to a hill of beans when it comes to medical. Like I said, my dad, before he passed away, was in the hospital for 14 days and had several surgeries and all that stuff. So it wasn't just like a hospital stay, but his bill at the end of the 14 days was almost $1 million, like $990,000. And it's crazy to think about that much money for 14 days in the hospital. But when you think about $100,000, it's awesome. But if we could all come together and make that happen a little bit more, even because I mean, 10,000, I bet it's $10,000 to transport somebody from hospitals, which is crazy. But it was a good time. Had an amazing time down there at the Classic. Did not qualify for it. I would like to tell you that we didn't qualify for it. We were kind of like Chris called JR. Was like, look, I've called people way down the list, and here I am, way down the list, and you're getting a phone call. Do you want to fish the Classic? So JR said, yep, I'm in. So we went down and had a good time. It was a great time. Stayed at the Star Point Marinas. They have a lodge there, which has like 3 or 4 different rooms in it. Super clean, really nice place. $100 a night for the room with 2 beds in it. Had a refrigerator, stove, everything you could possibly want. Obviously, a bathroom, stand-up shower, toilet. Everything was nice. Super big deck out in front of the lodge. $20 a night for a slip. It was like the real deal. For $120 a night, you can't stay anywhere for $100 a night anymore. That was that nice. It was a nice place. So if you guys are looking someplace to stay down there at Dale Hollow, when you go fishing, if you go down there, Star Point Marina, which is where the tournament takes out of there, they have the ramp is, especially this time of year when it's winter pool, they have 2 lanes of ramp, but one of them is out of the water right now and you can't use it. So that's one thing to consider. If you go there for a big tournament, it takes a while to put boats in. Unless you have a slip, I would recommend getting a slip the night before if you're going to be fishing there, because it's worth the $20 to not do the hassle. So with that being said, guys, I told you it's going to be a short video tonight. JR's laptop crashed and his wife is actually doing work. She is a doctor as well, and she was doing notes as far as JR said, and obviously work is more important than play, so he didn't join us this evening, but he'll be coming back next week, and we will get everything ready to rock and roll for a new upbeat episode of On Another Line Live. Again, we'll have some short clips coming out on YouTube Shorts here very soon. Tomorrow and the next day and a few other days after that. We'll be back live next Tuesday, the same bat time, same bat channel here on Another Line on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, I'd appreciate it if you do so. It means a lot to me. I broke 5,000 subscribers the other day. I have like 5,025 right now, which means a lot to this small little podunk country boy from Cold Grove that likes to fish and talk about it. So thank you guys about that. But again, we will dive into fishing a little bit more next week on Another Line Live. Got a couple guests that's supposed to join us next week, so we'll see that happening, and hopefully it happens. If you can, guys, be safe out there. It's going to start getting colder. It's supposed to be like 50-some degrees this Thursday as the high. I'm not looking forward to it, but kind of the way it is. So fall is about over. We're going to have some winter months to do some fishing. Until I can't do some fishing, then I'll be praying for spring. So we'll see you guys. If you guys know the routine, if you guys can get out there and lean on them. We'll see you next time on Another Line.